Thank you. Hello everyone. Thanks for coming today. Today we're going to talk about insurance and in particular, of course, digitization of insurance in the healthcare field. So insurance, basically, the general definition of insurance is that it provides a protection, generally through coverage, through money, against risk in general. And there are common features of almost all fields or subfields of insurance, which I try to depict in this slide. First, those who do not meet the unexpected and unwanted event generally pay for the others. Most of people pay, and only a minority of people will encounter the undesired event, which can be an accident, a disease, or any problem, any risk, in fact. But people that do not meet this event generally pay for you. This is a common feature of the model, of the theory of insurance, and I think that Jean-Charles will further explain. Second, those who contribute more indirectly pay for those who contribute less. No, not everybody pay the same in a general scheme of insurance, and those who pay more than the others because they wanted or because it was mandatory generally fund the overall model. And it's the same in healthcare generally, and in particular in France. Then you have a concept that is everywhere in insurance is the concept of moral hazard, which is generally poorly translated in France, because in French, people say hasard moral. And it's not hasard moral, it's aléa moral or risque moral, but it's not, the problem is not about random, it's about the danger. And the danger is that when you know that you're going to be covered by your insurance, you tend to behave differently and you tend to take more risk. And this is also the case in healthcare. When you know, it has been demonstrated by many studies, when you know that you're not going to pay for a disease, you tend to behave more dangerously and to take more risk with respect to that possible disease. The moral hazard is everywhere in the insurance science. And the last common feature that I tried to depict here is the fact that all insurers, whether in healthcare, home, car industry, or what you want, try to refine predictive models. They try to find the best model that will both protect people and ensure profitability for their company, or at least break even in case of a public insurance, because public insurance do not want to make profit, they only want to protect people and to stay at a break-even point. So health insurance might have unique features as compared to other subfields of insurance, and you know that in general, each time you attend to a conference or each time you read a paper about health, people say health is different, it's not, you cannot compare health to other fields, etc. So of course, health is essential, is an essentiality, is an absolute, it's like freedom, it's like liberty, it's like some rare features, it's essential, it's not like your car. You don't want to lose your heart, whereas you could tolerate to lose your car. Then health is very expensive, and it's approximately 12% of our wealth, of our GDP in France. It's never less than 8% in democracies with comparable income. And in the US, of course, it's much more. It's almost 18% of US GDP. So health is very expensive. That's why health insurance is a major issue for everyone. Third, health is quite unpredictable. It's more unpredictable than car accident or than other kinds of risks. And in the predictive models, the theoretical model in the insurance industry is thought to be more difficult in the health insurance as compared to other insurances. And I'm sure that you will talk about that. And last, a quite unique feature, or at least a rare feature, is that competition in healthcare does not play a role that is similar that in other sectors. And in general, you know that competition enhance the quality and lower the price of goods and services. And in healthcare, it's sometimes different and sometimes the reverse effect that you observe. When you have more competition in healthcare, sometimes, and it's true in insurance, the price rise. So how is healthcare insurance organized in the different countries that we might observe as benchmarks? In France, you know that we have a quite unique system because we have a combined system between the public-private strategy, and we have a public health insurance which is called the assurance maladie, which is embedded in the Sécurité sociale, and it was created just after the Second World War, and it still works quite well because people have almost free access to care. The quality of care in France is okay. And the percentage of the GDP is quite comparable with other democracies of comparable income. So our Sécurité sociale and our assurance maladie in particular works quite well. And we have another system in parallel which are frequently called mutuelle or assurance complémentaire, but these are private healthcare insurances between 500 and 600 in France, and 96% of the population has a private complementary insurance added to the classic public health insurance. This is the French system, which is quite unique in the world. You can verify. The UK system is even more public because it's really like a public healthcare system, which is almost free for almost everyone, but which has a poorer reputation in terms of individual care, whereas it has the great reputation in terms of the public health approach that they have. And you know that in France, we have the reputation to have good clinical individual care, but a public health strategy that is quite poor, and you can verify this currently because it's difficult to have vaccination to become mandatory. People contest that. In Germany and in Scandinavia, you have either a public health insurance or private insurances, but they are regulated by the state. So people are quite well protected. And in the US, it might be, in that regard, the poorest healthcare system in the world. It's highly complex. For people that have absolutely no money or that are older than 65, you have public health insurances that are affordable and quite effective. But for the others, you only have private healthcare insurances between 5,000 and 6,000, so it's a lot. And it was not mandatory since the Obamacare. That's why you had 40 million American people that were not covered. And since the Obamacare, half of them are now covered, but you still have approximately 20 million people in the US that are uncovered. And of course, we don't know what it's going to become with the Trump presidency. So what's the main trend in the healthcare insurance science or industry now? It's the value-based insurance. All countries try to lower the cost of care and to improve the quality and the access of care. These are the three main concerns of all countries, even those with better healthcare systems. But they also realize that they are so-called blind payers, payeurs aveugles en français, and it's not logical to stay from that standpoint, and they try to encourage the better care through a better coverage of better care. It raises numerous problems, and it's very difficult to implement, and in addition, even if it's in theory the best system to cover better care and to discourage the coverage of lower quality of care, it has been proven difficult to implement and even proven difficult to demonstrate that there was an effect on the global saving that you could bring. It clearly can enhance the quality of care and in particular adherence to treatments, but it's not obvious that it will create saving for the overall healthcare system. And this is my last slide before I welcome Jean-Charles. The digitization, which is maybe the subject that he will talk the more about. it's difficult to assess the level of digitization of healthcare insurances. In general, the reputation of the health industry and the healthcare industry is that the level of digitization is quite poor, and it doesn't have a good reputation, but it's difficult to really assess the level of digitization of this industry, and you can find contradictory estimates that I will show you just thereafter. This is one from Harvard Business Review, and you can see that, but the problem is that it has been gathered with the bank and industry, and the bank industry is quite digitized. So the level of digitization is intermediate on that slide, and according to that estimate. But you can also find another estimate from Roland Berger, which is, of course, a great consulting firm, and they estimate that the level of financial and insurance service is quite high. So it's quite difficult. So this is it for the small introduction. I'm now delighted to welcome Jean-Charles.
Thanks, Jean-David. The introduction was really great in terms of like trying to summarize what is and what's not insurance, and I think that it's going to evolve and it will be deeply linked to what, especially in healthcare, what technology will bring in terms of new value and how to approach the system, and it will be the only way to change the way insurance is approached. I will try to give you a short introduction on who I am and then what we are doing at Alan and what is our vision as a company. And I think after that it will be great to have a Q&A on how we can challenge insurance as a whole and as a business model. Just a very short introduction to tell you where I come from. I have a mixed background between tech, where I've done some web development since I was young, and then engineering and entrepreneurship, where I created my first company when I was 22, developing aircraft seats for economy class, which was really interesting because it was a heavily regulated market with very little innovation, which made me quite open and sure that we could do the same in healthcare. That's why we created Alan. Alan is a company that we created 1.5 years ago. We try to make health insurance simple. As Jean-David said, we have quite a good level of care in France, but there is a very big, and it's the same in every country, asymmetry of information where you don't know what to expect from the system. If you ask people in France, they know that it's free, but they don't know what is free and what is not, what they have to pay for, what is the quality of care, how to compare it. And we try to make that simple, and we believe that health insurance and private health insurance was the key player in the market to do that, because we are at the interface between the end user, the doctor, the hospital, so we are the link in that system. We are the first and only totally digital health insurance in Europe. We are in a market with a lot of incumbents. There are more than 500 in France. It's a fragmented market almost everywhere. That has been the same for a long, long time. In France, we are the first one to get a license as an insurance since 1986. So it's been 30 years, 31 years now that there were no new license. And it was a big challenge to get it, but it also showed that it was a field where innovation from new players was not that welcome. It was really complex to get the license, and it was mainly based, of course, for regulatory reason, from the fact that the incumbents and the actual players, they were trying to block new players because they were quite happy of this wrong mix of incentives that exist in the market, and that makes competition not the best thing to happen. In order to do that, we raised 12 million to start the company, and I think it's an important feature in the insurance field is that you need a lot of equity to start a business, because there are a lot of requirements, and it's done mainly because you need to reimburse your users, which is quite an important feat of insurance, and you need to prove the safety and the long-term vision that you have as a company and that you want to provide to your users. And that's really important, and 12 million is quite a big amount for a seed round in France. when you look at insurance in the US, it's even bigger. You have like first round of 50 million, 100 million, 150 million of dollars because the risks are bigger in the US, in fact. But that's what also limits the entry of new players in that field. Just a short glance of what is Alan in terms of products. We try to make health insurance very simple and transparent. What does that mean? It means that you onboard in less than 3 minutes as a company or as an individual. Everything is online, everything is integrated. So if you are a company, it's integrated with your payroll system. You invite your employees just by copy-pasting an email, on which seems to be like normal and standard features for a product in 2017. It was really not the case in the insurance field, especially for companies. So it's a big gap, in fact, that we are producing in the market. I was saying about integration. The idea is to make it really easy and really simple at every step. So we are integrated with PayFit. We try to help you to track your health and to make it very simple. That's on the company side, because in France it's mandatory for companies to provide health insurance to their employees. And it's a new law that's started in 2016, which created a new market, which was an opportunity for us, but which is also was a limitation for most companies, where it was really complex to select and compare what they had. So the need of transparency and knowing how much you will get reimbursed and what you're covering was really, really important. On the other hand, you have the end user, and for us as a company, we have this mixed approach where we are both a B2B company where we serve companies, startups, SMEs, SMBs, that they can purchase our product, but at the end we serve the end user with the best care and the best user experience in the way they interact with the healthcare system. So it's how you get access to your information, how you get reimbursed, and we reimburse very quickly. You just have to take a picture of it. How you deliver a customer service that answers to the real question on real time, and that was one of the biggest pain of insurance as well. It was the level of interaction with your customer service, and we try to bring technology in order to do that, which is really important. And I did put that slide just to say that we are in a market where the brand awareness and the love to brands is very low. Like, it's really funny because there is this kind of distortion between what does insurers believe they have as a brand, and when you look at AXA ads in airports, they say we are the favorite insurance brand in the world. But when you ask people on the streets, it's rarely like their interaction with their insurance was not that good. And when you take like real surveys, you see that out of like a grade of 5, the best is 2.4, which is really, really bad in terms of value. And so I think like for insurance in the future, in healthcare, but in every market, you need to build a brand that your users are able to trust. And I think building trust in insurance is one of the most important topics, and they can love and share about, because you are solving another problem of insurance, which is customer acquisition. And if you manage to create network effect and referrals, you are really good. And we have been quite successful at that with Alan, and we are really happy of that. Just quickly, what makes us really proud as a company, because it's very different from the rest of the market. First, we managed to get a license in less than 8 months between the creation of the company and the actual license and operating as an insurance. And it was a great knowledge for us because we learned a lot in that short period of time. It was really intense. And we managed to do that, I think, and it's one fit of insurance is that we integrated the knowledge within the company. And I think it's really important for med in tech and for like every kind of regulated market. Regulation is not something that you outsource. It's something that you need to bring within your company as a core competency that will make you understand how you deliver your product, how you can play with the regulation in order to deliver better value. And we have seen a lot of entrepreneurs that were like outsourcing that, not bringing the knowledge in, which at the end makes it very difficult to interact with the regulator because you don't control all the fine tunings of like how you build your company to serve the regulation long term. And for us, it was one of our biggest challenge, and we solved it that first by integrating the knowledge. The other thing in the insurance business I think is a great asset is to be able to be very lean and efficient. We were only 8 when we got our license. We are only 15, which is a big surprise for most of the companies that we interact with. Everybody thinks we are 80 or 100 or 200. And it's mainly because we really focus on what's important, and we really believe in leveraging tech in order to do that. And it has thinking very lean is a big difference from a market where insurers were quite winning a lot of money in the past, so they didn't have an hurdle to think about their company structure and to think on how to be efficient. So it gives you a huge competitive advantage because that value and that savings that you generate in administration, you can put it back in your product and offer a better service and a better coverage to your user. And it's a very virtuous circle. The leanest you are, the more competitive you are, so the biggest market share you have, so the more money you get as a bottom line, so you can invest more in the product and keep differentiation. And that's the same with distribution. Today we have a customer acquisition cost that is 0. We didn't spend money on marketing, we don't have sales, and we are growing quite fast. And that's because we remove intermediation in that market where brokers were taking in average 15% of the premiums a year. And on the first year of contract, it can be even more. So you have these people who are paid for distribution, not paid to deliver the product, and we are cutting that partly, which helps us at the end of the day to better serve the user as well. The last thing that is not on that slide, but that is really important, and I think we need to discuss it afterward, it's how you, with a long-term vision, you create value for your user in terms of prevention, in terms of helping them to interact with the healthcare system, so it's very efficient. And by doing that, you can wake up some risk that we have seen in the market, which is the correlation of behaviors with premiums or with discounts. And we don't like that at all at Alan, and we are quite different from a lot of companies in the market, like most of them. And we have set up some, like I would say, firewalls in the way we work, which are we wrote in our bylaws that we will never sell the data, which I think it's a quite important feature if you want to align your interests with your users. And we also put in our bylaws that we would never use the data we get from our users to personalize and individualize the pricing, which is, I think, a very important feature in insurance where the trend is like to have a pay-as-you-drive for your car. For insurance, if you are running, you will get a bonus or this kind of stuff. And we believe that it creates the wrong incentive for users to share that data with you because they will only share like the good data. And in fact, giving bonus to people that behave well is the same way that giving malus to the people that are not behaving like you want. So we believe we should not use data for individual pricing. We should use data for pushing you the right feature at the right time. A user should not have the same interface if he's a diabetic who is 45, if she is a pregnant woman, or if he is 25 or she's 25. And we are really working on that, on how we can improve the user experience based on the data we have, and how we can improve prevention, but not being an actuary that try to just balance at best his portfolio and taking short-term decisions that will ruin your long-term value as a company. A question we have a lot of time is why we did build a full-stack insurance and not a broker. Part of the answer was on the previous slide, is that we control distribution and we control the admin, so we reduce the costs and we can deliver a better coverage for our users. The other thing is that externalities when you are a broker are very complex to manage because you're not sure of what the insurer wants to deliver as a coverage, even if you negotiate, or as a long-term vision to your users. So you make them take a risk on your brand, and you don't want to do that. The third thing I think that is really important in building a full stack insurance is that we are in an, and it's not only in healthcare, it's in tech, but we are in an exponential and accelerating market where the way we are going to interact with the world is accelerating and the way we are going to live our health is accelerating. And we want to be at the edge of that. And the only way to be at the edge of that is to control all the value chain so you can change quickly, iterate quickly. And then if you have externalities, it's very difficult to do that again. And it serves our long-term value, like our long-term vision as a company, that insurance will be only a feature of the way you interact with the healthcare system, but you have to be, if this feature is not core, and if you don't control all the claim system, all the customer service system, all the way you manage risk, you will not be able to integrate it very well with the rest of your product. It's a short slide. We have more women than that normally, but just to say that I think when our asset as a company is, of course, we are on the right market, we are solving a problem of our users, but it's because we bring a new vision, a tech and product vision, in a market where it was mainly driven by actuary and financial incentives. And that's the huge difference, in fact, because we take care of our user and we just think at what is the best user journey for someone who is interacting with the healthcare system and with his insurance. And that changes the way we are apprehended by our user, and it helps us grow a lot and differentiate a lot in the decision we take as an insurance. And that's why we don't like to call ourselves an insurtech. We are really a tech and product company that is doing insurance, and that's, I would say, a very important thing. And I believe that is the main challenge in the healthcare field, to be able to bring very high-tech organizations that are able to integrate, for us it was the insurance and healthcare knowledge within it, and finding the right balance and mix between the two to be very innovative, to not take as granted what the market says in terms of operation and in terms of the way you should interact with users, and that's a key differentiator. This slide is not really interesting, but it's just that we try to go very fast. We push product every week. We have total transparency within the company, which means that everybody knows everything about salary, about our data, what is our growth, what are our problems, what are the next steps and the objectives, which translate in the end product. And that's just something as a company that I think is really important. The value you have internally for yourself, they will translate in your product. And if you believe in simplicity and transparency, which are two core features for us, you have to apply it in the way you work and in the way you operate. And that's also, I think, one of the big challenges of like incumbents in the insurance market, where they have not been structured to be really transparent and to be really simple in the way they interacted with the user. They were more or less living on complexity, and we are trying to break that. Last, and so then we can exchange. For us, insurance is only the first step of what we want to build, and what we want to build is a healthcare platform, like not only in France but in Europe, that makes it for you as a user really easy to integrate with the healthcare system. We believe that you should not worry of all these gaps that exist between your doctor that you are seeing, the social security system, how you are going to get reimbursed if you want to do telemedicine, how are you going to do that, what is the link on your doctor, on your pharmacy, and this kind of stuff. And we want to give you an integrated approach that is based on the insurance, where we deliver more and more services in terms of how to interact with the healthcare system, how to do active prevention, so how I can do the right checkup at the right time, and how my platform for health can help me in order to do that with the right incentives. And it's a very virtuous goal, I would say, for us. The more we will bring services and the more we will differentiate with the value of services that we give to our users, the bigger will be our market share, and the more we can invest in services. And I think that the target of every insurance today and us as a company is not to be anymore a blind payer, a payer aveugle, as Jean-David was saying before, but to create a core value to your user where you become their platform, and insurance is only a small but important feature of what you're delivering to them, which is making your health like transparent and in terms of cost as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Silber. That was really great. Congratulations for what you've done so far. So, since you said that the marketing brought people in through word of mouth, I'm thinking that your early population is possibly a little bit younger than the average population, and that this might be keeping the costs down, and that you must be planning for the fact that one day when you have huge success and it represents the whole population, that you're going to have higher costs and less profitability. And my second one is, I think that the parallel stops there, but you chose Alan and then there's Oscar Health in the US. They're nothing like one another, but you did choose to use a first name.
Yeah, so for the first question, we have quite a young population, which was more or less expected. So we are going to be, I guess, the only health insurance in France that is increasing its coverage and decreasing its price within its operation. So next month we will announce that we are decreasing our price for our user base because we are seeing a better loss ratio that we expected. So we try to pilot that, and a big difference that we have with other insurances is that we have our actual loss ratio every day, every minute if we wish, so we can track very quickly where we are in terms of reimbursement. And of course, the elder population we will have, the more expenses we will have, but the only factor we take into account in our pricing is the age, the average age of the company or the age of the user. So we kind of take into account that in our pricing already. On the second hand, that's funny. When we started the company, and I didn't go into all the details, but we are not working on insurance. I was working on machine learning algorithm to bring you active prevention, tell you which checkup to do when, and we stopped and switched to insurance because we believe that B2C in prevention was not a business model at all, like for at least 10 to 20 years. And if we were to do B2B2C, and when we started to interact with insurances, we knew that we had to do it ourselves and to build the insurance if we wanted to deliver value. Just that to say, we choose Alan like before being an insurance, but I think the similarities are still the same. We were looking for a nickname that works everywhere, that people can create a brand that is different from MMA or something like that. It was important for us to personalize the brand and to make it alive, to change that concept of insurance as impersonal stuff. And in fact, it was not only insurance, but healthcare as an impersonal stuff. It's really weird, but if you look at brands in health, like if you're not in the field and you ask people in the street, there are very little brands that they will know in health and in health insurance. So we are trying to change that. Yeah, so the question was about prevention. What can we do, and is there already some metrics to measure it or not? Prevention is a very complex topic, and you started on it, Jean-David. It's really hard to measure the outcome of prevention for an insurer, for the complete system. Like, is doing active prevention reducing the cost on long term? What is the cost? What are the implications? So, and there is like, you can read something on its contrary in very good scientific papers. So the idea is, what is the value of prevention? I guess there is two kinds of value. Maybe the long-term value in reducing your cost first for us, but we are not sure about that and we are not betting on it. I'm just delivering a better service to your user, and that we believe it's a key differentiator. So we should do it just for that at least. The other thing in prevention is that you have tons of stuff. So you have like I would say, easy one prevention when you have a lot of indicators that someone is pre-diabetic. You can do simple things in terms of nutrition, sport, like to avoid diabetes, so you can help people do that if they want. And then you have more complex prevention where you don't exactly understand the causality, but you can understand the correlation. So what we saw at the beginning of the company, for example, is that when you crossed a lot of demographics data, like the level of revenue, where you live, it was on US data, so ethnicity, age, sex, like the family you have, you had very different curves of like how sickness develop. So you could say, based on that data, I could tell you, you should do that checkup at that time. And then it won't be perfect, so you have to assess what will be the cost, what will be the risk, and to iterate on that. That's the kind of like prevention you can do. I think you have 3 levels of data today. You have like what I call quantify self, so like the number of like how much you work today and this kind of stuff, which is already quantified but not qualified. It's not really good data, in fact. So what you can do with it, I think, as of today, it's still a lot of marketing. So of course, someone who is like working 25 kilometers a day, maybe fitter than another one, but it has a lot of underlying questions. Then you have like, oh, I can put machine learning algorithm on the data we have. And the data we have is how people, like, what are the drivers on the correlation, as I said, in driving sickness, what is the impact or the effect on people of that kind of drug or not. So here there is a lot of room, and we are very early in that field in healthcare, not because we don't have the machine learning capabilities, but because we don't have the structured data to do that. And being the insurance is one way to develop your own structured data, so you're sure of the quality of the data. Or when the data exists, it's not accessible yet. And the last thing, which I think is really interesting, but very early, of course, is genetics, on what is the impact of genetics and epigenetics on what we can measure. It's the same thing. It's like, I think there is very quick wins that we can do on that are done already on BRCA1 or this kind of stuff. But there is also a very long-term bet on, like, just focusing on genetics would be like trying to debug a project by regarding the 0 and the 1s, which is not the best way to start. And the market will change there. There will be like a lot of stuff that will be done in every of those verticals. The idea is how we can bring that value at the right time to the user for us as a platform, which is another kind of, I would say, prevention. It's just understanding when people want to interact with you as an health insurance, which is another question and that we are trying to work on. We are very, very super early on that, but that topics that we are thinking on, or at least on which we are structuring our data so we could do cool stuff in the future.
Just one comment on the prevention side is that in France, private health insurers do not have a financial incentive to promote prevention, because if they promote prevention and if people behave in a healthier way, the savings will go to the public health insurance and not for themselves. If you help someone with a diabetes to better balance his diabetes and to enhance his health indicators, he will be less often hospitalized, and the assurance maladie will make some savings. So there is a fundamental misalignment in France between public and private insurers with respect to prevention. That's why, in particular, I think that private insurance do not really promote prevention. They pretend they do, but they don't really do. I just repeat the question. It's about will there be a disruption of the current organization between the public-private mix? I know that Didier Tabuteau, for instance, from Sciences Po, wrote a paper in Le Monde a few months ago claiming that all should be gathered in a great public health insurance and the savings would be 15 billion a year or something like that. I know also that this calculation has been challenged by economists. I don't know exactly what would be the outcome of a mega merger. But it's an estimate still. Actually, I don't think it's likely to happen. I really think that the current government and the future government know that this will be extremely difficult to implement, and that the savings are not a guarantee and are not certain. So I don't think there will be a disruption here. But the last thing is that the assurance maladie is investing in prevention, because you already have the ROSP, Rémunération sur Objectif de Santé Publique, that encourage patients and their physician in particular to promote prevention with a long-term saving that is still hypothetical, but that might happen someday.
Just to add on that question, I also think it's quite hypothetical, or we would not have created the company. It would have been quite risky. No, but that being said, I think there is a lot of value at having several players in the market, because it generates like several ways of thinking on how we should approach problem, and it's quite a safe thing for a market where, when you have a given uncrunching monopoly, you don't tend to serve better your user. You tend to serve better yourself in order to control your monopoly. That being said, I think there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done in terms of integration, and we can share data between the public health system and us as a private health insurance in order to bring more value to the end user. And if we manage to do that, if we manage to cut a part of the administration cost, a part of the distribution cost, I think it will be really, really interesting on what we can bring as a value as an user. And your question is asking, in fact, another question that is bigger. It's what is the role of the state in healthcare, and where should solidarity stop, and what is the basic level of reimbursement that we want to give, or coverage we want to give as a state and as a society. I tend to say it's really important that we keep that level of solidarity. It's really, really important. And you have more and more voices that are saying that in a middle-term future, where we are very good at genetics analysis, at prevention, at knowing the risk, like why would I individually take my individual insurance because I know that my risk is like 10 times better than the other one. If you remove that solidarity in the system, I think it's really risky. But on the other hand, you have another question, is that it's not, we have the tendency to think in France, because it's huge amounts, that it's an infinite sum, which is not. It's not, we cannot spend as much money as we want on the topic. We have to balance what we can spend on healthcare to have a great population, and sometimes there are limitations. And I think that will be one of the roles of the state with us, private health insurance, to give the right level of data and transparency to the end user, so we know where we spend and why we are spending. And it will raise difficult questions, like should we keep investing in this kind of treatments? And most of the time I think the answer is yes, but we have a tendency in France just not to ask those questions because they are difficult, and just letting those questions in the hand of the doctor, which 99% of the time is taking the right one, and I think there is no right and wrong one, but which takes a lot of responsibility because there is no clear rules. And if you add on top of that the acceleration of technologies and new technologies, will be the social security system fast enough to integrate those technologies to deliver a better service to our users? That's a big question. So the question was, will we build partnership with other companies such as Doctolib or Wellness or software from hospitals? It's a totally open question, and we really believe that if a company is great in its field and is doing the job very well, we should find a way to integrate. The only thing that we are really looking at is, does that company is better than us in doing it, or what value in the user journey will it bring? So, of course, booking a doctor, for example, and knowing how much it will cost before going to see him, because we have the history of all the other events, I think it's a great value for the user. So that's some kind of stuff that we can work with, where we try to empower the tools that exist with the extra data we have as an insurer.
No, thanks for coming.
la famille.